The avoidant doesn't love the way most people love. Openly, expressively, with clear demonstrations that leave no doubt about their feelings. Their love is quieter, more complicated, often invisible to the person receiving it, because it's buried beneath layers of defense and filtered through years of learned emotional suppression. But make no mistake, avoidants do love, and when they love with an intensity that terrifies them, precisely because it matters so much. The qualities they love about you are often the ones they can never quite articulate, the traits that penetrate their defenses in ways that both comfort and frighten them, the characteristics that make them want to stay close, while simultaneously triggering their impulse to run. Understanding what avoidants love about you requires looking past what they say or don't say, past their inconsistent behavior and emotional distance, to the psychological reality underneath. What they love about you are often the very things their wounded hearts need most, but their defended minds trust least. Your stability, your patience, your ability to see them clearly without trying to fix them, your strength that doesn't require them to be weak, your presence that doesn't demand their constant attention. These qualities create safety for the avoidant, even as that safety triggers their fear of dependence. They love you for being exactly what their attachment wounds require for healing, even though accepting that healing means facing the vulnerability they've spent their lifetime avoiding. You don't chase them when they withdraw. One of the qualities avoidants love most about certain people, though they may never say it directly, is the ability to give them space without pursuing them anxiously when they pull away. When the avoidant feels overwhelmed by intimacy and retreats into their protective distance, you don't panic. Don't flood them with messages asking what's wrong. Don't take their withdrawal as a personal rejection requiring immediate resolution. This response, or lack of intense response, creates profound safety for the avoidant's nervous system. The avoidant has learned through painful experience that most people respond to their withdrawal with pursuit that feels suffocating. Past partners have chased, demanded explanations, interpreted space as rejection, or created drama around the avoidant's need for distance. These responses only confirm the avoidant's belief that intimacy leads to being trapped, that letting people close means losing autonomy, that their need for space is fundamentally incompatible with relationship. But when you don't chase, when you respect their withdrawal without making it into a crisis, you're communicating something revolutionary, that they can have both connection and space, that their need for distance doesn't destroy the relationship, that you trust them to return without needing to control their process. This quality you possess allows the avoidant to experience their withdrawal differently. Instead of feeling guilty about needing space or anxious about whether the relationship will survive their absence, they can actually use the space for its intended purpose, regulating their nervous system, processing their emotions, returning to themselves. Your lack of pursuit paradoxically makes them feel safer returning, because they know they won't be punished for having needed distance. They come back not because you've pulled them back, but because the space you gave them allowed them to remember why they want connection with you. What the avoidant loves about this quality is that it demonstrates you have your own emotional center. You're not dependent on constant contact with them for your well-being. You have your own life, your own sources of fulfillment, your own capacity to be okay even when they're not present. This independence is deeply attractive to the avoidant because it means you won't consume them or require them to be responsible for your emotional stability. They can be with you without feeling like they're betraying their need for autonomy. The avoidant also loves that your lack of pursuit allows them to miss you. When someone chases them during withdrawal, the avoidant never gets the space to experience their own desire for reconnection. They're too busy defending against intrusion to notice their own longing. But when you give them genuine space, they have the opportunity to feel their own pullback toward you, to choose connection from desire, rather than obligation. This experience of choosing you from their own volition, rather than responding to your pursuit, is crucial for the avoidant's ability to access and trust their own feelings. Moreover, your ability to not chase reveals a form of faith in the relationship that deeply moves the avoidant, even if they can't articulate it. You trust that the connection between you is strong enough to survive periods of distance. You believe they will return because they want to, not because you've compelled them through anxiety or pressure. This faith in both them and the relationship contradicts the avoidant's core wound, the belief that people will try to trap them or that relationships require sacrificing autonomy. Your restraint proves that secure connection doesn't mean possession, and this proof is something they treasure even as they struggle to express gratitude for it. You see their wounds, but don't try to fix them. Avoidants are drawn to people who possess a rare combination of perception and restraint. The ability to see their emotional wounds clearly, while resisting the urge to heal, fix, or rescue them from those wounds. You see their fear of abandonment masquerading as indifference. You recognize their need for control as protection against childhood helplessness. You understand that their emotional distance is a survival strategy, not a character flaw. But unlike others who see these wounds and immediately want to become their therapist or savior, you see and simply accept. This quality is precious to the avoidant because it allows them to be known without feeling like a project. They've experienced too many people who, upon seeing their vulnerability, immediately try to fix them, suggesting therapy, offering unsolicited advice, trying to coax them out of their defenses, or making their healing into a condition for love. These well-intentioned attempts feel to the avoidant like pressure, judgment, and a message that who they are right now isn't acceptable. But when you see their wounds and don't try to fix them, you're communicating radical acceptance. You're okay with them as they are, wounds and all. The avoidant loves that you trust them to manage their own healing journey. Your restraint from fixing them is actually a profound form of respect. You're treating them as a capable adult who can handle their own emotional work, not as a broken thing that needs your intervention. This trust in their agency is something the avoidant rarely receives and deeply needs. It allows them to lower their defenses slightly because they're not constantly bracing against someone trying to change them. What makes this quality particularly powerful is that it creates space for organic growth. When the avoidant isn't defending against your attempts to fix them, they have mental and emotional energy available to actually work on themselves if and when they choose to. Your acceptance doesn't enable their avoidance. It removes one of the barriers to their growth, which is the resentment and defensiveness that comes from feeling like someone is trying to change them. In the safety of your non-judgmental presence, they might actually become curious about their own patterns in ways they never could when feeling pressured to change. The avoidant also loves that you can hold space for their pain without being consumed by it. You see their wounds and don't become so distressed by them that they then have to take care of your distress about their distress. You have enough emotional capacity to witness their brokenness without needing them to immediately become whole so you can feel better. This emotional maturity is rare and deeply valued by the avoidant, even if they never articulate that value. You have your own full life that doesn't revolve around them. Perhaps nothing attracts and comforts an avoidant more than witnessing someone who has a genuinely full, rich life that exists completely independent of the relationship. You have friendships that predate them and will continue regardless of them. You have work or passions that fulfill you deeply. You have routines, interests, and sources of meaning that have nothing to do with them. Your life would be impacted by their absence, but it wouldn't collapse. This quality creates essential breathing room for the avoidant's perpetual fear of being someone's entire world. The avoidant has often felt suffocated by partners who made them the center of their universe. When someone's happiness, social life, and sense of purpose all depend on the avoidant, it creates unbearable pressure. The avoidant knows they can't consistently be what that person needs, and the weight of someone else's well-being resting on their shoulders triggers their flight response. But when your life is already full, when you're already happy and fulfilled through multiple sources, the avoidant can relax. They can show up as an addition to your life, rather than as the foundation of it. What the avoidant loves about this quality is that it proves you won't become dependent on them in ways they can't sustain. They watch you maintain your friendships, pursue your interests, and derive satisfaction from your own activities, and they feel relief. They see evidence that even if they disappoint you or need distance, you'll be okay. This removes the guilt that often accompanies their withdrawal and makes them feel less like they're constantly failing, someone who needs more than they can give. The avoidant also loves that your independence creates natural space in the relationship. They don't have to manufacture distance or create it through withdrawal, because distance is built into the structure of your life. You have nights with friends, time dedicated to your hobbies, commitments that naturally mean you're not always available. This organic space feels different than space the avoidant has to fight for. It doesn't come with conflict or hurt feelings. It's just the natural result of two whole people maintaining their individual lives while also sharing connection. Moreover, the avoidant is attracted to your independence because it mirrors what they value in themselves. They respect people who don't need constant companionship, who can be alone without falling apart, who have a strong sense of self that doesn't require constant external validation. Seeing these qualities in you makes them feel like you're operating from a similar value system, that you understand why independence matters, that you won't judge them for their need for autonomy, because you value your own. You love them without needing them to change. The avoidant has spent their life receiving a particular message from people who claim to love them. I love you, but I need you to be less distant, more emotionally available, better at communication, different than you are. This conditional love has taught the avoidant that their authentic self is unacceptable, that love is contingent on becoming someone they're not sure they can be. But when you love them without needing them to change, when you see their limitations clearly and choose them anyway, it's a profound and sometimes overwhelming experience. What the avoidant loves about this quality is that it removes the constant low-level anxiety of knowing they're failing to meet expectations. With you, they can be themselves, emotionally reserved, needing space, slow to open up, better at showing care through actions than words, and it's enough. You're not waiting for them to transform into a more emotionally demonstrative person. You're not treating the current relationship as a temporary state that will improve once they work through their issues. You've accepted who they are right now as the person you're choosing to be with. This acceptance doesn't mean you don't have needs or boundaries. The avoidant can distinguish between someone who accepts them and someone who abandons themselves to accommodate dysfunction. But you've found a way to honor your own needs while simultaneously accepting their limitations. You've decided that what they can offer is sufficient for you, given your own needs and life context. This decision to love them as they are, rather than as who they might become, is one of the most generous gifts the avoidant can receive. The avoidant loves that your acceptance allows them to access whatever growth is authentically available to them. When they're not defending against pressure to change, when they're not resisting someone's agenda for their development, they might actually become curious about whether they want to grow or try new ways of relating. Your acceptance creates the psychological safety that makes organic change possible, whereas pressure to change typically makes the avoidant more entrenched in their patterns. What makes this particularly meaningful to the avoidant is that you're loving the real them, not a fantasy version. They don't have to perform emotional availability they don't feel or fake comfort with intimacy they don't possess. They can show up as they actually are, and that's what you're relating to. This authenticity is rare in the avoidance experience and deeply valued, even if they struggle to express that value directly. You're emotionally stable and don't create drama around their patterns. Avoidants are deeply drawn to emotional stability in a partner. Someone who can handle their withdrawal, their silence, their need for space without creating crises, drama, or emotional chaos. You don't interpret every instance of distance as a relationship-ending event. You don't spiral into anxiety when they need alone time. You don't create ultimatums or dramatic confrontations around their patterns. This emotional steadiness creates a foundation of safety the avoidant desperately needs, even as they struggle to acknowledge that need. The avoidant loves that you can manage your own emotions without requiring them to constantly reassure you or manage your anxiety about the relationship. When they pull back and you remain steady, not cold, not indifferent, but genuinely centered and calm, it communicates that you're not going to add to their emotional burden. They can withdraw to manage their own nervous system without then having to come back and manage yours. This is crucial because the avoidant often needs space specifically to regulate themselves. And if seeking space creates more emotional work, the entire purpose is defeated. What the avoidant also loves about your stability is that it provides a counterbalance to their own emotional inconsistency. They're aware that they're hot and cold, present and distant, open and closed. Your steady presence creates a reliability they can count on, even when they can't count on themselves to show up consistently. You're the anchor in a relational dynamic that would otherwise feel untethered, and that anchoring allows them to wander, knowing there's a stable point to return to. The avoidant appreciates that you don't weaponize their patterns against them. You don't bring up every time they've withdrawn in past arguments. You don't keep a running tally of their failures to show up emotionally. You don't use their avoidance as ammunition in conflicts. Instead, you address issues as they arise with calm directness, and then let them go. This approach allows the avoidant to engage with problems without feeling attacked or defined by their worst moments. Your emotional stability also demonstrates that you can handle the avoidant's reality without falling apart, which makes them feel less dangerous to love. The avoidant often fears that their emotional limitations will destroy their partners, that their inability to provide consistent intimacy will break someone who loves them. But when you remain stable and grounded despite their patterns, it proves that you're resilient enough to be in relationship with them without being damaged by their limitations. This is deeply reassuring to the avoidant who carries guilt and fear about harming people who get close to them. Additionally, your stability creates an environment where the avoidant can occasionally be less stable themselves. When they know you won't fall apart, they can afford to have moments of vulnerability or emotional expression without fearing that the entire relationship will destabilize. Your groundedness gives them permission to occasionally not be grounded, which is a rare gift for someone who typically feels they must maintain rigid control over their emotional presentation at all times. You show love through actions rather than demanding words. The avoidant often struggles with verbal expressions of emotion, but is capable of deep love demonstrated through consistent action and practical care. What they love about you is that you recognize and value this form of love, that you don't require constant verbal affirmation or emotional declarations to feel loved. You see love in their actions, the way they show up when you need help. Remember details about your life. Make your comfort a priority. Include you in their private world, even when they struggle to articulate their feelings about you. This quality you possess, valuing actions over words, allows the avoidant to love you in the way that's most accessible to them. They don't have to perform a type of love that feels foreign or overwhelming. They can show care through reliability, through being present in practical ways, through small gestures that demonstrate you're on their mind even when they're not expressing emotional sentiments. You recognize these actions as the love language they are, not as a deficit of real emotion. The avoidant loves that you don't interpret their difficulty with emotional expression as lack of feeling. You understand that someone can feel deeply while struggling to articulate those feelings, that emotional reserve doesn't equal emotional absence. This understanding removes pressure that typically makes the avoidant even less able to access or express their feelings. In the safety of not being constantly pushed to verbalize emotions, they might actually find it easier to occasionally do so. What makes this particularly meaningful is that you're seeing them accurately rather than projecting your own emotional style onto them. You're not assuming that because you express love through words, everyone must express love that way. You're recognizing that people have different capacities and comfort levels with emotional expression, and you're meeting the avoidant where they are rather than requiring them to meet you where you are. This flexibility and understanding is something the avoidant rarely encounters and deeply appreciates, even if they never say so, because saying so would require the very verbal, emotional expression they struggle with, creating a perfect paradox that your acceptance resolves by not requiring resolution.